I think there needs to be a little bit more discussion about Florida to begin with, which is funny to say because there was a lot of discussion about Florida really since the season ended last year. And a lot of discussion is going on around him and his job security, him being Billy Napier. So he was asked yesterday more or less about his job security. And the way that he answered that question raised a lot of eyebrows. He said, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but the key phrase he said is, we are on schedule to some degree. A lot of folks heard that, especially in Gainesville, and they were like, we're on schedule. We're on schedule, William. We're on schedule. We went 5-7 last year in year 2. Are you sure we're on schedule? And that's a fair reaction to have. That's a fair response to have, but I think there's more to that than what meets the eye. I'll flip this question on its head a little bit. What's he supposed to say in that situation? What's he supposed to say when asked about his job security? Yep, I'm a little bit nervous. No, you don't say that. You don't say it when it's a talking festival and you're supposed to just give the people more ammunition. No, of course you don't say that. You put on confidence, whether it's real or not. And I think, to be clear, I think it was real from Billy Napier. And you keep on pushing forward. That's all you can do in this situation. I do think it's also worth noting that on schedule for a fan base can be very different than what's on schedule going on internally. And I don't even think I'm playing devil's advocate here to sort of make this statement. Like, when Billy Napier got there, things were not good. That is obvious. When things are not good, it takes some time to turn them around. And Billy Napier said that as well. So to be on schedule from a wins-loss perspective could be very different than what Billy Napier is referring to. I think what he was referring to is being on schedule to what they do in-house. And I've made this comp for a lot of teams over the years, Texas being the most recent. When you are trying to turn things around and you're trying to do things the right way, whether it be in college football or in life, there's growing pains. When you're trying to get in shape for the first time after eating junk food and never exercising, that first lift that you do, that first week of eating meals, you feel sick. Why? Because your body is going through intense change. You're trying to do things the right way for the first time in I don't know how long. That's Florida right now. There is growing pains. And so just for him saying we're on schedule doesn't mean he's speaking to 5-7. I think he's speaking to we're on schedule with our progress in how we attack the work, how we do things in-house, how we are attention to detail, how we are culturally approaching this thing. Now, the reality is, for us as the college football public, we're not privy to what's actually going on in-house. We get a peek in the window. We don't actually get to see the whole living room and what's going on at Florida. And so we're kind of, to a degree, taking Billy Napier's word for it, but Graham Mertz echoed the same sentiment. And his SEC Media Days, what are they supposed to say? I get all that, but I do think that maybe that should be a little more encouraging if you're a Florida fan than pointing to their wins-loss column and saying, well, on schedule does not look like they're on schedule. My first thought when I heard him say we're on schedule to some degree, I was like, okay, well, what's the schedule built to do? Because the schedule is supposed to get you to some end result, right? Like your schedule for a Saturday usually builds up to what you're doing that night. I got the schedule of to-dos, and then on the very end of that thing at 5 o'clock, we're having a nice dinner with the family. It's going to be great. That's the schedule. What's the schedule for Billy Napier amounting to? Remains to be seen. But again, this whole deal here at SEC Media Days, I love it because it means college football's almost here. We love it as the college football public because we get to hear from these guys talking about the 2024 season and not about spring ball and the portal and all of that. Though some of that probably is baked into the answers they give you. What's he supposed to say? Like this situation, this whole apparatus that is SEC Media Days isn't built for a coach that's in the middle of some growing pains and trying to get things on the rails. You're kind of trying to put your best foot forward and just hunker down until the season gets here. I will say this, talking about being on schedule from a wins-loss perspective, last year, I said it many times, you won 6 games in 2022. In 2023, let's see progress. Let's see 7 wins. And it's easy to piece back the schedule, hindsight's 2020. You stole South Carolina, no way around that. But in terms of games that if you're a Florida fan, you feel like you probably should have won, Arkansas probably should have won that game. The game against Missouri, 4th and 17, your starting quarterback goes down. Like, you probably should have won that game. The game against Florida State, they're playing a backup quarterback. Probably at certain points felt like you should have won that game. And so all I'm trying to say here is I think if you're splitting hairs here, a couple of plays make the difference between on schedule actually being true from a wins-loss perspective. But again, I think Billy Napier is speaking to the internal ongoings at Florida and what that schedule looks like. I'll say it again, man. This is not built for Billy Napier. This being SEC Media Days. This is not a situation that you are probably walking into with a ton of excitement, because there's going to be a lot of talking. All there has been is talking since the season ended. You need week 1 to get here. You need Miami to roll into the swamp and to actually have the ball be set down and played. That is what it's about for Florida right now. That's the only remedy for anything to be positive for them. And I'm not saying they can't put positive things out there on the social media page, or they can't say positive things at the press conference, but the things that will really turn the tide and really turn momentum around is winning football games. They have a good chance to do that week 1 against Miami. Now, here's the one more thing I want to say. There's a lot of assuming with Florida in 2024. One reason why we've said for a long time now we think that the narrative around them is incorrect. Over-under win totals 4.5. The schedule is just absolutely ridiculous. The schedule I would not wish on my worst enemy. Let's look at November explicitly, though. Are we sure that all of these teams that they have in November are going to be as good as they're cracked up to be? Now, Georgia's Georgia. All right, so Georgia, probably subtract them from the equation. You're at Texas. What do they look like late in the season? I think Texas is one of the best rosters and teams in college football. I love what they have at quarterback, is Steve Sarkisian. How beat up are they from the SEC? Because at that point, you've played quite a few conference games. How are they holding up? I think they'll be good, but how are they holding up? I think that's a fair question. LSU, is the defense fixed? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. They got to go, I believe, to Florida in that game. Ole Miss, is that transfer portal thing working how you want it to work? Again, right now, we're assuming all these teams are going to be pretty solid. Is that still the case in November? Because remember, last year, too, we also assumed that Eli Drinkwitz was on the hot seat. Fast forward the tape. Won 10 football games, beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. What's Florida State that last game? When you go to Tallahassee. 83rd in returning production. That stat has been well documented. DJU, the new man behind center for them in Tallahassee. I like him, but is he going to be able to answer the bell? I'm just saying here, as tough as this schedule is, how it looks in July and how it looks in November could be two very different things. So on schedule, I get why it raised some eyebrows. I'm not telling you you're wrong for having the reaction that you did if you're a Florida fan, but I think you talk about being on schedule as the head coach at Florida a little bit differently than you would as a college football fan. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.